This video is all about working with lists, and we have some specific functions and methods built into Pygame that make things really easy for us that some of the other programming languages just don't have. And we already have seen length, right? So if I were to run this, you'll see that here's my list, printed out the list, and how long is that list? Well, it's 7 long. So len numbers, len short for length, the length of the list is 7 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items in that list. Okay, but here are a couple others. So we have length of our list, but we also have a way to find the maximum value inside of our list. And as you may have guessed, it's max for maximum. So we just say max of numbers, and it will print whatever the maximum value is. And of course, you may have guessed it, minimum also works. So min numbers. So if I run this, you can see length is how many items are in my list. Well, there's 7. What's the biggest thing? 12. What's the smallest thing? 1. Now these lists aren't static. We can change values inside of a list, but we can also change how many items are in this list. And the first thing that we can do is we can add to a list. Let's say we wanted to add another number onto the end, but right now our thing only has 7 items in it. Well, I want to add one more thing into my list. So the way we do that is we say numbers.append, and the word append just means add something onto the end. So we'd say numbers.append. Well, what do we want to add onto the end? Well, let's say we wanted to add 5 onto the end. Okay. So what's going to happen is I'm going to print out my list, then I'm going to add a 5 onto the end, and then I'm going to print it out again so that you can see 5 was actually added to the end. So here's my list. I added a 5 to the end, and here's my list again, except now there's that 5. So append means add something onto the end. Now what if just instead of adding a 5 onto the end, I actually wanted to add 3 new numbers, 3 random numbers? Well, I'm going to use a counted loop for that. For I in range 3, so let's do this 3 times. I'm going to say numbers.append. What do I want to add on to my numbers list? Well, I'm not sure. So I'm going to say random.randrange from 1 up to 11. So I'm going to pick a random number from between 1 and 10, so 1 or 10 or 9 or somewhere in between. And I'm going to add that onto the end of my list. And I'm going to do that 3 times. Okay, so when I go and run this now, you can see I've got these 3 new numbers here, and they were random numbers. I didn't pick them, and they were added onto the end. If I wanted to add 5 new random numbers on, I could just put a 5 here. So if I run it again, you can see I've got 5 new random numbers here, a 6, 6, 10, 2, and 8. And I just added them onto the end of my list. So how do we take things off of the list? That would be the opposite of that, right? Okay, and what we use for that is pop. It's like you're popping something off the end. Okay, so you actually get to pick what thing you're going to pop off though. Okay, so append means add on to the end, but pop, we're going to pop out one of these values. And the way we pick it is based on the index. So if I want to pop the first one off, I would put pop 0. So I go ahead and run that. Remember that first number is at location 0. It's at index 0. So I want to pop off whatever value is at location 0. So it will pop off there. Now what if instead of popping off the first one, I wanted to pop off the last one, but I didn't know the length of my list? Like for example, I mean like this list is hidden somewhere. Well, either we could say length of my list, okay, because there's 7 things here, but I'd have to go -1 because remember this is the 6th position. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could either do that, but Python has something even better built in. If we go -1, that means go to the end. -2 means go 2 from the end. -3 goes 3 back from the very end, and so on. So you can just put a negative number in here and it will start working backwards through the list. And just to show you that it works, here we go. We've popped the last number off the end of the list, and that's working great. Now what if we knew there was an exact value that we wanted to remove, okay, rather than what its position is? So let's say we wanted to remove the 4, for example. Well, that's pretty easy to do too. There's something built in there. And the way we do that is we go numbers.remove, and we want to remove the 4. So when I run this, you can see the 4 is gone. It's not position 4. This is 0, 1, 2, 3. It's in position 3, but it just looked for the 4 and took the 4 out. Now if there were multiple 4s in here, so for example, I'll add another 4 in, and we say remove the 4, you'll see it only took out the first one. Okay, so the last one is still in there. It's just removing the first occurrence, not all of them. Now you might be wondering, what happens if I tell it to get rid of a 5 and there's no 5 anywhere in the list? Well, what actually happens is we get an error. Okay, so numbers.remove 5, it says, sorry, 5 is not in the list. Okay, so we get an error here, and the way that we can get over that is we have to use that try method, that try except thing that we've done before, just like when we're handling if someone enters a number when they should have entered a letter or something like that. So what if we didn't want to actually remove the 4, and instead we just want to know where is the first 4? Well, that's numbers.index. So numbers.index tells me where is the location of this value in my list. And just to see that it works, I'm going to print the answer out to the screen, and we don't need to print the list twice. Okay, so 4, we said numbers.index 4, where is the 4 in my list? So 0, 1, 2, 3, it's at index 3. That's where my 4 is. And know that it only gave me 1. The second 4 over here, it just stopped when it got to the first one. And just like last time, if we said, all right, well, where is the number 8? Notice that there's no 8 in the list. If I were to run that, of course I'm going to get an error. Why? Because 8's not in the list. So again, you'd have to use your try and except method. And one last thing, what if we had 2 lists? So I've got one list called numbers, and I could have another list called names maybe. And my names list is going to have Josh, of course. I'm a little partial to that name. Isaiah, and Elijah. Okay, so what we can do actually is we can add these 2 lists together. So we can say numbers plus equals names. In other words, take the list numbers and add onto numbers what names is, and then we can print numbers. And just so you believe that that line did something, we'll print numbers before as well. So when we run this, we printed numbers, we added names onto numbers, and then now we're printing the numbers list, and you can see that the numbers list now has this list as a part of it, has the names list, and that names list is in there for good now. We'd have to pop these back out if we wanted to get rid of them. Now this isn't an exhaustive list of the methods and functions that lists have available to them built right into Python. This is just some of them. If you want to see the other ones, you can go ahead and Google them, and I'm sure that you'll be able to find some documentation on them as well as some examples.